Hey everyone who's joining, we'll get started in another 4 minutes or so. All right, just 2 more minutes and we'll get rolling. All right, let's get started. For those of you here, appreciate you jumping on. Hopefully, this is kind of like my first try at a live stream or event like this, so um, hopefully you get some value out of it. So my name is Eric Summers, and I have been using Tableau for a number of years, over 10 years, and have been working with the Tableau APIs for probably 8 of those years, and have gotten to the point where I see a lot of need and demand for these type of skills. So just kind of in the last couple months started to share specifically about all of the APIs um, and trying to get a little learning site going that I'm calling TableauOps. It's at TableauOps.com. And so, so tonight we're going to look at creating hyperfiles from CSV sources, and the major benefit to making that conversion is where we can provide a lot quicker data sources. if they're converted over to hypers. And another big benefit is the size. So in some of the tests I've seen and run, I have gotten, they kind of need to be larger, but I've seen my CSV files half the size once they're into a hyper. And also, once we have it in a hyper, we can publish it to Tableau server or cloud, and that gives us a lot of freedom to not have to work with like external files and things like that for our workbooks. Once it's published, we can connect to it from other workbooks or new workbooks and use it a lot easier. So that's what we're going to jump into tonight. I'm going to start from the beginning, except for installing Python. So I'll jump in where I've got Python and the libraries installed, but I'll provide a rundown of everything we go through and also the files that I'm using. It's actually going to be pretty simple. I have one Python file, a .env file, and my source CSV. So I'll delete these because they'll get regenerated. First, these are the libraries we're going to use: Tableau Server Client, Tableau Hyper API, Python.env for security and storing our credentials, pandas, and pantab. So I have those already all installed. And this first part is going to load each of those. So I'll just kind of walk through these sets of code and explain what each part does. First, I always start with a .env file. That's going to give you more security with your credentials. So like right now, I am showing this string, this function, os.getEnv. That's going to grab the variable that I have stored in .env. So I don't have to share, excuse me, I don't have to share like my hard-coded username and password during a stream, or if I send this file out, then that's not, you don't have a risk of sharing it. So I always recommend setting up a .env and using that format. So I've got the .env and I've got Tableau server, my site ID, token name, and token secret, path to my CSV, and the name of the hyper that I want to be output. So this will be the output name of the hyper. I'm going to show my .env. I wouldn't usually, obviously. It's got credentials, but they'll only be live. It's actually, I'll set up a new set of credentials and a PAT, and I'll just be deleting that as soon as this is over. So the token name and secret are going to be our PAT values, and I'm going to go to cloud to share that. So this is my cloud instance, and I've already logged in. I am a, let's see, I am a site admin creator, and but as long as PATs are enabled on your site, anyone can create one to help them. I'll have to look into that. Actually, for sure, any site admin and creators can. I'm not sure if viewers can, but the goal is to use this PAT or personal access token rather than logging in with a username and password. So to set up a PAT, you want to go to my account settings. I'm already there. And then scroll down just a little bit. You can see I had this token earlier. I'll just revoke it. And guess I'm not sharing my screen, sorry. Okay, let me see. All right, is that, sorry about that. It was failed to share that, and I'm hopefully sharing the right side. Yep. So on this side, I've got my .env file that I'm going to load up with my PAT. Let me start back from the beginning from home. So we're on Tableau Cloud Home, and to set up a PAT, you just go to your user, go to My Account Settings, and then scroll down just a little bit. And right here, you can add a new token. So if tokens are not enabled on your site, then this will be disabled, this section. So I'm just going to name it CSV to Hyper, and I copy that over to my .env file, CSV to Hyper, and I'll click Create Token. I'm going to get the secret. So you don't want to share this, obviously. This gives people access to pulling data and workbooks from your site, and also publishing data and workbooks to your site. And anything about the users can be pulled down as well. So you don't want to share the secret. I'm on a site that doesn't have anything on it, so not worried about it right now. This won't be enabled until you click Done, but also know that once you click Done, this secret won't be available anywhere ever. So click Done once you have it saved, and we can see here I've got the CSV to Hyper, and it will expire in 1 year. So I placed that in my .env. So I've got the Tableau server, site ID, token name, token secret, CSV path, which is right here, customers.csv. It's in the same directory, and then my hyper name that I want it to, the name I want it to be when I do the output. Okay, so now we're going to load our libraries in the beginning here, and load the .env. What this does is load up the .env file as variables so they can be accessed. And you access them this way, os.getEnv, and then you'll see, so it's case sensitive. Tableau server here relates right back to Tableau server there. If you're having trouble with, sometimes like the variables are cached, so if you want to make sure that if you make a change to your .env file, you want to make sure that you can test if the change came through by printing like one of them that's not, server URL isn't as private as your token secret. So I'll print out the server URL. This is going to just create a data frame, pandas data frame, by reading the CSV file. So customers.csv will go into this data frame, and I actually want to do I'm going to do df.head, which will print the first five rows. If you're not familiar with this notation, I'm in VS Code, and you can run, this is just a .py file, but you can run cells within VS Code if you use this notation. It also has to be enabled. So when I do Control Enter, it's just going to run down to the df.head. And I'm going to get the full screen so we can see my Tableau server printed, and I've got the first 5 rows of that CSV printed as well. The next, I highly suggest you use the PanTab library. So there, the Tableau Hyper API exists, and you can do all of this within Tableau Hyper API. But I found that when it comes to data sources and data types, that PanTab does a lot better with things like dates and other types that need to be persisted when you move from the CSV to the Hyper. So I'm going to run this, and we'll see over here in the file directory, we'll see that Hyper created over there. So this just tells me that it ran without errors, and we can see the Hyper. We also have needed to go through. Sometimes you'll get errors here that won't surface within your environment, within a print or the output here. So if you are seeing errors, sometimes you can catch those in the Hyper log. All right, so now that we have our Hyper file, it's ready to upload to the Tableau Cloud. So the first thing, so now we're using Tableau Server Client. I've got an alias to TSC. The first thing you do is run auth. I'm gonna split these up. So the first thing you want to do is run auth. That's there are two different methods. One is using your username and password, but since we are using a PAT, we're going to use the method personal access token auth. The first parameter is just the name, and then the secret, and then the site ID. If you're not familiar with that, your site ID is always going to be this portion of your URL. And if, like, I printed out the server or server URL, that's always this. Or this will be, if you're on-prem server, Tableau server, then that will be the URL you use to access your server. So when I run this, it's going to create an object called auth, and then it's going to use the tsc.server method to create a server object. Once we have the server object, we can start logging in and doing. This is kind of like our start for any of the Tableau Server Client processes we need to do. And so the server object just takes our URL, and auth is also going to save some of the necessary information into, oh, sorry, that's not right. So we're going to put server and auth together down here. I'll show you that. So I'm just run auth and server. I get a check mark. I'm going to show what that object looks like. So you'll see something like this if you print the object. And if I print auth.token name, then I get the name of the token that I'm passing in. Same with server. You can print the server URL that's currently within that object. So the next part is where we get to use the server object and the auth to log in to our cloud instance. This next part I'm using because sometimes, if you don't know or you want to get the project names exact for the next part, I am printing out all of the projects here so that I can choose which one I want my Hyper file to publish to. So this is the method for grabbing projects is just simple. It's server.projects.get, and that grabs every project. I'm saving that to a variable all projects and then printing that variable in a loop here. So my available projects are default, samples, external assets, and admin insights. Um, so I want to publish this to default. So I've just created a variable project name. I'm setting it to default, and that is just our default project that's within every server instance. So I'm going to do another with. Basically, that opens up, that logs in and opens up this object to run any of the methods against it. And then generally you could close that also or end. I'm not doing that. So again, this is going to grab all projects. That's kind of a redundant thing here. But it is, let me see. So it's going to actually use the default project name and make sure that within all the project lists that project exists. So that's what this portion is doing. And then if it doesn't find the project that you've defined here, it will throw an error and let you know that that project isn't on the site that you're looking at. So now we're going to create this object called data source, and what it is a, let's see, so it's creating an object that Tableau server client can then use to publish. So we're not at the publish point yet. That's coming next, but this is defining our project ID. So I've passed in the project name, which is default, but we need the project ID to actually create the data source item. And so that's, and then that ID is passed in. So, sorry, I should have gotten this, but this is where it searches for the project default and then assigns that object to this project variable. So I can use project.id for the ID. So then the name here, the second parameter in this function is going to be the name of your the Hyper file that you want to upload. So this will be the path, and what this split is doing is just, it's basically, so my file is actually called customers.hyper, and this is going to split off the Hyper portion of that. So then we get to the server data sources dot publish. So that's going to take in the object that we created here. So it has the project ID and the file that we're going to upload. And then this second parameter in publish is the name that you will see on as the data source name within server or cloud. So currently I have that, let's see, it's defined. So I have that defined in the .env file. Again, you can define it out here though, make it a little easier. And so there's also, you can do a create or an overwrite of this data source. It's the same with a workbook if you're publishing a workbook. Generally, I tend to use this. So currently we're using this to create a CSV and then get it published to server. But a lot of times I'm using this same function to publish, to like refresh a data source outside of Tableau and then publish it. So when you use overwrite, you benefit from the revision history that exists natively within Tableau, and you also, any workbook connected to that data source will remain connected. So I tend to do overwrite, but I'm not. This will default to create also if it if it doesn't exist. So it won't error, but just be careful, it will overwrite. If you have that same name and file in that project, it will overwrite it. So I'm just going to run that. And I get the message upload complete. That just means there weren't any errors. It printed out the success message. Then if I go back to cloud, I tend to go to explore, and then I'll do the drop down for all data sources. We can see that it's right here, customers. So now that this is a published data source, you can connect to it with a new workbook. This name it's the default. It's, within a Hyper file you have schemas, and so this is just the default schema name that exists within the Hyper file. So we can see it's in the default location. I'm the owner. Whoever is the owner of the PAT that you're using becomes the owner of that object that gets, or data source or workbook that gets published. If I go to it, then I can actually just start a workbook, and I usually will do this just to confirm that everything came in and there aren't any errors. It does look like our subscription date wasn't saved as a date, and it's not. It's not recognizing it. It might be the format, but anyway, so I would come in here to make sure that the data source loaded properly, and I can do that with this workbook. Other things, I'm not sure. Trying to think of other things you might want to know about this process. So one cool thing is, like, I'll show you, this method is the same for workbooks, for data sources. You just switch out. So if I were to put workbooks in here, I won't change the variables, but if I were doing this, I would change projects to workbooks in all these instances. But you can see when I just swap out that one method, we can run it against the server and return all the objects there. So if I do data sources, it's the same. So now we can see customers is down there, my new Hyper file. Then for this case, like, the CSV was pretty small, so I didn't see a huge gain in size, but I have seen other benchmarks that have even stated like 85%. So the Hyper is only 15% of the original CSV. And also I've seen some speed benchmarks. I don't need to run those, but I haven't done anything along those lines yet. So if you have any questions, throw it in the chat. Then and this will be posted, I think, as soon as this ends. I will package up just the CSV and the .py file, .py file, and then I'll throw in the env, and I'll clear out my values, and I'll throw in like a template.env for you. Then one more point is go back to my account set. Well, you wouldn't do this, but I'm going to do this just to show you how to revoke a token. So if you know you're not using that token anymore, just to be more secure, you can revoke it anytime. Come here and I click revoke. It's going to delete, and then when I go back, if I try to auth again, so I've loaded those as objects, and here it's actually going to try to sign in. I'll get the error, and if you scroll down here to see more of the error, I've got a sign in error because the PAT is invalid. So just to check on that the PAT was revoked. So yeah, I'll send over the just these files that we've gone through, and let me know, mostly on LinkedIn, if you have any questions. Also, I have another toolkit that I sent out last week that I'm happy to share. It has a lot of other items for managing users and stale content and things like that. So hit me up on LinkedIn if you haven't gotten that yet, and I'll send it over. But I appreciate everyone joining. I wasn't sure how long this was going to be or anything, but also let me know if there are topics related to the APIs that you are interested in seeing, and I can put a video or a workshop together. So I appreciate your time tonight. Bye. Oh, sorry. I do see some comments, sorry. So Tableau Hyper API library. That's right. I am just using the Tableau server client, and I'm using PanTab, the PanTab library, in place of the Hyper API. All of it can be done within the Hyper API, but I usually rely on the PanTab library to just make some things easier. Extract information from the data source used in a workbook like sheet. Yeah, but use on the dashboard. Yeah, so I see your comment, humble guy. There's an API called the document API, and it can pull a lot of information. So that's one source, the document API. Then you can use the metadata API if you're directly in Tableau server or cloud. That's another option to get a lot of the information out of a workbook or data source even. And something I just put together this past week was like an XML parser. So when I don't know if I have a file readily available. Let me see if I do real quick. So when you open up a file, if you open it up in, where to go? So I've got a TWB file here. If I open this file, then you can see it's XML code. So I just recently wrote a whole script to pull a lot of information from the XML. I just would call it like an XML parser. So it grabs all the columns, if the columns are filtered, or if they are part of a filter, the filter names, the other values that are within the filter, calculated fields. Also, you can pull anything about the sheets, like you're asking, the data source. There is some information there about that. Then, yeah, so you can get a lot of information if you just if you go through like the XML tree or xm.tree library, and I can do another course on that or something. But yeah. Oh, the font. Yeah, sorry, I'm on a smaller screen. But yeah, if there aren't any other questions, I do appreciate you jumping in to learn, and hopefully this can be helpful. But have a good night.